Salute! What's up, guys? Welcome to the Amped Up Podcast, Monday, October 30th, 2023. And believe me when I say we got a packed, stacked, jacked show for you today. It's great to be back in the office studio, and man, is there a lot to talk about. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and John Cena both have a major decision that has to be made, and I'm talking like today. The big writer's strike is pretty much over in Hollywood, but it just got even more complicated. Things got a little bit worse in Hollywood, and now The Rock and John Cena have to talk about their wrestling future. And again, this is a conversation that can no longer wait. We're going to talk all about it, what's happening in Hollywood and how this affects The Rock, John Cena, and pro wrestling, WrestleMania, and everything in between and after. Everything will be discussed coming up in today's podcast. We're also going to discuss a new member, potentially, in the Bloodline. A big family member just released from his contract. Could he show up in Chicago at a time where the Bloodline desperately needs individuals to fill up that group? Could this individual, an actual family member, show up and be a part of the Bloodline? In which side? Would he be a part of the Bloodline, or is he going to help out somebody like Jey Uso, who right now seems to be on his own? We'll talk about it. It's coming up in today's podcast. A major injury for a major AEW wrestler. It's unfortunate. This dude, just like Adam Cole, baby, seems like he just can't catch a break. Gets injured, comes back after a lengthy absence, gets re-injured, and then we just repeat the process. We'll talk about this individual, the injury that he has, and now the discussion, is it time to unfortunately hang it up? We'll talk about it coming up in today's podcast. A big tag team is being called up, at least for the week, to Monday Night Raw tonight. From NXT to the main roster, a big tag team debut tonight. We'll discuss it. And we're also going to talk Vince McMahon declaring that Saudi Arabia is the new home for WWE. That's right, an actual quote by Vince McMahon. We'll talk about it. I got the Raw rating and the Dynamite rating from last week. It was a rough week for professional wrestling in the numbers. WWE and Dynamite. I wasn't able to catch Dynamite. I did catch Raw. So I can tell you that this number, it absolutely is justified for the show that they produced. As far as Dynamite, I don't know what went wrong, but something went drastically wrong. We'll go over those numbers. I told you, it is a packed, stacked, jacked show for you today. Back in the office studio, back rocking like only the unit can. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get a big swig of coffee. Hopefully you guys are going to lock in those earbuds, smash those ups, and then come right on back. Because it is indeed time to wake up, get up, and get amplified. The Amped Up Podcast, Monday, October 30th, 2023. Let's do this. Salud. So The Rock and John Cena, a massive decision has to be made by both. I say today, but it's more like yesterday. So what are we talking about? The writer's strike is basically over in Hollywood. That's the good news. A multi-month writer's strike halted Hollywood in its tracks. Stopped everything. It wasn't just the writers. It was the actors. It was everybody. Production from the top to the bottom. Everything halted to show support to the writers. Now, barring some I's that need to be dotted, some T's that need to be crossed, still, for all intents and purposes, the writer's strike is over. But that's just the beginning of Hollywood coming to a halt, because now the matter just got even deeper. The issues just got bigger. Now there is an actors' strike. Now the actors are actually striking, which means all of Hollywood now has to support the actors. The writers have to stop. They were just about to go back to work. They now have to stop. They're going to obviously have to show support for the actors. All of production from top to bottom will show support to the actors. Now, if you're asking, well, BC, what could the actors possibly be striking about, right? They're making millions and millions and millions of dollars. Can't they just pull their heads out of their own asses and go to work? It's not that simple. You see, the majority of these actors are not making anywhere near millions and millions of dollars. They're trying to earn a manageable week-to-week paycheck, actually. And it's no consistency. It's what we call the gig life. You could work 2 or 3 productions a week and be able to pay the bills for that week, or a chunk of them for the month. You could have a week where you get no work at all. No production needs your services as an actor. But if you're looking at the Tom Cruises and the Jim Carreys and the Morgan Freemans and the Denzel Washingtons, if you're looking at them as how Hollywood works, that's Hollywood. You make it onto a big movie screen, or you're on a hit television show. You're making millions and millions of dollars, and man, it's the good life, fame and fortune. That is a distorted way to look at Hollywood, because that's not it at all. The majority of the actors, they're barely getting by. See, the actors are everybody you see behind that lead talent or that star performer. Everybody you see in a movie or a television show, whether it's the guy in the background with a coffee, or the guy reading the newspaper on the bench at the park, or maybe they're in a restaurant. Every table that you see filled at that restaurant while the lead characters are delivering their lines, every one of those individuals, they're actors. It looks like they're just on the street walking by, right? That's the whole illusion. That's the point. But if you're in a movie, anywhere in the background of a scene, they're getting paid to do such. What they are wearing is called wardrobe, approved by the wardrobe department. Many times they have to go in for a fitting. They have to go to a studio, do a fitting, and they get paid for that. Sometimes it's a quarter to a half day's wage, just to go in to make sure that you're wearing exactly what needs to be worn for that production. And then you show up what is called on the day, and you do exactly what you're told for 12 to 16 hours every day. You may walk by the same bench 8,000 times during that 16-hour period with the same cup of coffee, doing the same motions or waving down a cab 8,000 times. But that is your acting duties for that production. Everybody you see in a production, television show or movie, those are paid actors. That's how they make a living. They're trying to make it big. They're trying to become the next Morgan Freeman or Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks. They're trying to be the next Megan Fox. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen for the majority. But they're trying to get to the level where maybe they can be financially secure and they can have a little bit of fame and notoriety. But no, SAG-AFTRA is based on the backs. It is founded upon the backs of the average Joe Schmo that you don't even realize, that literally and figuratively stays in the background, not to be seen or heard. They're called background actors the majority of the time. There's other names, but they're called background. It's all of those people that there'd be no SAG-AFTRA if not for those individuals. It's those people that will hopefully one day get the next big role and keep working their way up the acting ladder. That's why there's a strike, because what they want to do is replace them with artificial intelligence, AI it is called. So what they want to do is take all the background actors and they want to digitally enhance their image. So one Joe Schmo will be seen maybe 40 times. You just won't really notice because you're focused on the main characters, right? The ones delivering lines. But everybody in the background, the guy on the bench, if you look far left, he might be in the park waving down a cab. Right? You just do a bunch of motions and they'll put you wherever they need to put you, and they can just reuse that image in other productions down the line, which means a lot less money for that actor. He's no longer needed. It's like still images. You know, they bring a bunch of people into a studio, they take a bunch of photos, and that's it. They can be memes, they can be GIFs. Right? Shocked face, and it just has a whole photo montage of a bunch of people that are shocked. And they can just reuse that image anytime they need somebody shocked, or angry, or happy. Reusable images, stock photos. They want to do that for productions, for movies, for television shows, which is going to put a lot of people out of work. Those people that are just background and getting by, just trying to get 2 or 3 gigs, just trying to get a gig a week, some of them. No work. They don't need you anymore. So you're either the superstars making the millions and millions, or you're just not needed. It'll shut down SAG-AFTRA in a big part of way too. Those union fees, they're going to be no more because they're going to be out of work, period. They ain't going to be able to afford the union dues, they're called. Those are fees every year you got to pay the union. Artificial intelligence is looking to replace many areas. Even the writers had to deal with that in their strike. Artificial intelligence writing their own scripts. Actors now worrying about artificial intelligence reusing their images so that they don't have to pay them down the road. That's how they get around it, right? Every time there's a new negotiation, even background actors, they're getting more money every day they show up to work, right? The rates are getting higher, so the production has to pay more. So this is a way around doing such. So the same production company that's trying to save cost now has to go, well, what do? We need to start the production. We need to get these movies out. We need to get these TV shows out. Now nobody's showing up to work. This is the old saying of you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you can get the deal done where you can use artificial intelligence, you're going to save a lot of money. If you can't come to an agreement, these production companies are producing no content and you're just hurting yourselves. So for production, it's best if they cut a deal soon. Cut out artificial intelligence, call it a day. Pay the damn actors by the production. Don't be stingy, now is not the time. Because production will get hurt from this more than anything. And then on top of that, they're trying to look for residual increases for streaming services. So streaming is so big, but they've never really talked about how they get paid. So these actors, they're all over these streaming services, whether it's Netflix or Paramount. You name it, man. Even Peacock. Amazon Prime Video. They're all over these streaming services, but they feel they're not adequately getting paid the residuals they would on cable or whatnot. So that's another big obstacle that they need to come to an agreement on. So this is huge. Many say, yeah, it could be solved any day now. It also could take many more months to solve this. And then we enter The Rock and John Cena. John Cena, of course, is wrestling more frequently and showing up every single Friday night and even on Tuesdays sometimes because he's got an open schedule. The writer's strike. Now that that's basically over, now you went into an actor's strike. Batista said he's ready to come back, just needs the phone call from WWE and he's willing to come back for a segment, a story, whatever they have as long as it's good. Batista's saying he's ready to come back. The Rock makes a surprise return and then all of a sudden starts talking about his match with Roman at Mania and how it almost happened, but we want to do something even bigger, which obviously WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia. I don't know how much bigger you're getting that for Rock and Roman. So he's teasing that. That was during the writer's strike. Now the actors are on strike. So all these actors want to come back to WWE. A couple of them already did. Batista remains to be seen. But now the actors are on strike and there's some big issues. that are standing in their way of returning to work. November is in 2 days. November 1st is Wednesday. And whether you guys realize it or not, 3 weeks from Saturday is the Survivor Series. This is where we jumpstart WrestleMania season, right? This is where everything is kind of put to the forefront. You kind of got a clear vision of WrestleMania, and then everybody packs it in for the holidays, for Christmas, and then starting at the Royal Rumble, everybody has that clear vision and that path cleared out. Survivor Series starts it all. So the decision now needs to be made. The Rock, let's just start with him. If you're going to do this WrestleMania thing, you need to know now, right? You need to know yesterday. The whole big thing with The Rock is clearing out his schedule. It's always been about schedule for The Rock. He said recently with Pat McAfee that it's not just scheduling. We just wanted to do something bigger. No, it is scheduling because like John Cena said, you have to have clearance insurance-wise, and you cannot put other jobs at jeopardy if you get injured in that wrestling ring. Other productions, other employment is on your watch when you were in that ring or dedicating time to WWE. So you can't be selfish like that. So scheduling is absolutely the biggest issue. It's just about scheduling that time frame as if you're filming a movie. That's what would need to be done, kind of like Cena and The Rock at WrestleMania 28-29. Because it would have to be something like that, where you're literally carving out time. You can't do this simultaneously with other projects. So the whole thing with The Rock is he had a lot of big projects coming up. Now the dilemma, the big decision that needs to be made is, do you A, now just tell WWE I can't do it. Whenever we get back to work, I'm going to have a shit ton in my lap that needs to be produced. Don't forget, he's got his production company. It needs to be produced, let alone him filming projects. So I got to wait. And when the time comes and it's time to go back to work, that's what I have to concentrate on. Or does he say, bro, we've been out of work for months with the writer's strike. And just when it's over, we start another strike. This could take many more months. If they don't finalize anything by Thanksgiving, they're gonna shut down for the holidays, for Christmas, obviously. Then you regroup, you re-up on negotiations starting in January, each side. So let's just say this thing drags on to January, February, March. The whole time you could have been doing something storyline-wise and getting this finalized and finished once and for all with Roman Reigns. So it's either you tell WWE I can't because when we get going, man, there's so much that is going to be in my lap. Or you say enough is enough and it's time for a change. No, Owen Hart, much love and respect. But is enough enough? And let's do this. Because when it's all said and done, you're wasting a half a year with all these strikes, the writer strikes, the actor strike. At what point do you say, what are we doing? This is the perfect time to do this WrestleMania match. It's when Hollywood has been shut down for basically half a year by the time this strike is over. And that's being generous. So at a time where Hollywood is shut down, I'm not getting any younger, The Rock should be thinking. And everybody is waiting for this dream match. This is the time. WrestleMania 40. It's Philadelphia. Hollywood is on strike. What am I doing? Let's start rocking at the Survivor Series kickstarted or at the Rumble. This is a decision that The Rock has to make today. I say today. I say yesterday. And then you let everybody know if you decide to go through with WrestleMania, then everybody needs to know that's your production. You're dedicated to that. You don't know when this actor strike is going to end. You don't know. And that could lead to another strike. Who knows? A director's strike. You don't know. So let's do it now. That's what Dwayne Johnson could absolutely be thinking. And make millions in the process. Treat this like it's a movie production. Same with John Cena, who came back for 8 consecutive SmackDowns was the original agreement, right? Thinking that the writer's strike would be over by then. And they're still dotting their I's and crossing their T's. So now they go into Saturday's Crown Jewel, and he's like, well, shoot, I'm still available. Let's do Crown Jewel. But now the actor strike catches on like wildfire. Now John Cena, I haven't checked. A lot of business conducted over the last 7 to 9 days, really. So I haven't been able to check John Cena's appearance schedule for WWE. But don't be shocked if after Crown Jewel, Cena sticks around even longer. Possibly Survivor Series. And do they set something up for WrestleMania with John Cena? Because at what point do they have to stop waiting around for Hollywood and start conducting their own business? John Cena's already been doing it. The Rock is going to be next in line. I wouldn't be shocked if he is already in talks with WWE to do this match with Roman Reigns. And that would kick Cody Rhodes to the curb. Anybody that thought he was going to have his rematch at WrestleMania 40. And we can get the image of him laying down with a rubber chicken instead of him hoisting up the championship. We can get that out of our dome pieces once and for all. My theory on that, by the way, is you have 2 nights of WrestleMania. There's no reason you can't have the dream match of a lifetime. The Rock versus Roman. Who's the tribal chief in WWE, right? You can even make it non-title. And on the second night of WrestleMania, or the first, whichever you choose, Cody Rhodes versus Roman for the championship. You could still do that. I'm not saying it would be as epic of a moment as WrestleMania 39. That's when Cody should have won it. That's a story for another day. But you know how I feel about that. If you follow the channel, we've ran that into the ground a billion different ways. But you have 2 nights of WrestleMania. There's no reason. Roman Reigns barely shows up to work every month anyway. A couple, 2-3 times tops. And usually it's not even a wrestle. So if he can't wrestle 2 matches on back-to-back nights, I don't know, you got to rethink being a professional wrestler. So there's no reason that The Rock and Roman can't wrestle at WrestleMania and Roman can still drop his title or can't still drop his title to somebody else that same weekend. But this actor strike, this is big. This halts production basically for the rest of the year, let's be honest. Because by the time, even if they get this done before the holidays, is anybody going to want to pick up production right before Christmas? It ain't going to happen. November's and Wednesday. Production starts shutting down around Thanksgiving. All of production shut down for Christmas. So even when this ends, the year is pretty much finished. Bare minimum, you can come back second week of January. That's when production starts to kick off for the new year, deep into January. And that's only some production. A lot of production doesn't pick up till February. So this is the time. This is the time. John Cena's another story. He's been back. He can come in and out whenever he chooses. The Rock picks and chooses a little bit more detailed, a little bit more vividly. There's a lot more that goes into when The Rock picks and chooses when to return. This actor strike might have just busted the door down wide open to WrestleMania. Or does he think, I need to be ready when this strike ends. I'm going to have so much to film, so much to produce, so much work to cipher through. This is a decision that The Rock has to make now because he cannot wait around for Hollywood to open up. Because if not WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, when do you do The Rock versus Roman Reigns? When you're 65 years old? WrestleMania 58, WrestleMania 64. When do you do this? When Roman Reigns is also retired for the most part? This is looking like the perfect time to treat this like a movie while Hollywood is shut down. Make a ton of money. Make your final match ever with your cousin. Get the dream match in the books. And again, everybody make a ton of money. This seems like the perfect opportunity. The Rock has to make this decision. You cannot drag this on through and past Survivor Series. It's muddying the waters. Are we doing this or are we not? Massive development in Hollywood And this is greatly going to affect not just The Rock, but also if you see John Cena going forward as well. And even Batista. If you thought he was ready to come back before, now the actors are on strike, you could see Batista in the imminent future. Interesting. I'll be keeping an eye on that too, man. We're trying to see, a lot of people trying to get comment from The Rock on this. Of course, he made a 7-figure donation during the writer's strike, so he could make another 7-figure donation for the actor's strike. But I think that's the biggest donation ever in Hollywood history for any type of a strike. The Rock given 7 figures. So he's big in supporting anybody on strike. So I'm guessing he's going to expect the same camaraderie in the industry for them. But a lot of people are trying to reach The Rock for comment. He's not speaking too much on it, but he's been teasing that Roman match a lot as of late, man. If not now, when? I guess that's the biggest question. Moving on. So that was a link. I told you, man. Hey, that's why we moved to a straight podcast format. It's cool that you guys get to watch as well because it is the tube platform. But I always say, man, lock in the earbuds and go about your business. Come back 3-4 times during the day to finish the podcast if you need to. But that's why we moved to these platforms, so we can take these subjects and really talk about them. You know, have a cup of coffee and talk pro wrestling, man. That's why I like these. I like the podcast format because we get to just talk about these subjects in great detail and depth. But we'll move on to some of the quick rapid fire topics now. How's that? Right? These topics hopefully won't take a half an hour. We'll start with a huge call-up, man. Well, huge for the tag team division anyway, which is pretty much non-existent. You have tag teams and some really good ones in WWE, but there's no real division. But teams like that are getting called up. You could start the foundation of a tag team division. But they're kind of similar to like a Gable and Alpha Academy. And if they can't book them correctly, what makes us think they'll book these two gentlemen correctly? But who am I talking about? Swig of coffee. So we are talking about the Creed brothers. Called up from NXT, apparently on Saturday afternoon. Chad Gable of the Alpha Academy issued an open challenge. I think this was maybe on the social doohickey machine. And they issued an open challenge, and the Creed brothers, a day later on Sunday, yesterday, correct? Yesterday, they accepted the challenge. So we're doing more cross-promotional stuff. I'll be PG. More cross-promotional stuff. Could have used the other S word, but we're still crossing it. Brand split? What is that? Raw showing up to SmackDown, SmackDown to Raw, SmackDown and Raw to NXT, NXT to Raw and SmackDown. There's no brand split. Let's just end this once and for all, because this is turning to an embarrassing charade at this point. But the Creed brothers are coming up to take on the Alpha Academy, and that's actually going to be on tonight's Monday Night Raw, or at least that is what's penciled in. I say penciled because plans always change and it gets erased, and that doesn't matter if it's Vincent Kennedy or Levesque McMahon. These two dudes, they just change things. Snap of a finger, blink of an eye, drop of a hat. But as of now, Creed Brothers versus Alpha Academy, an open challenge was accepted by Creed Brothers. So look for that tonight. I think it would be a good wrestling match on a wrestling show. That's where we give the golf clap, right? Round of applause. Wrestling on a wrestling show. That's great. I don't know what this does to captivate people's attention, casual fans or families that just show up to yell, "This is awesome" for everything, and then they go home and forgot everything they just watched. They were just looking for a good night out to have some fun. Nothing wrong with that, and I hope they found the fun at a WWE show. But as far as a level of care about what is going on in that ring that's going to make us tune in the next week and the next month and the next show and the show after, I don't know what this is really going to do for the tag division. Again, they can't even book Alpha Academy correctly. What makes us put stock and hope into the fact that they'll book Creed Brothers correctly? We'll see what they do tonight. My guess, they're going to have a good wrestling match and they're all going to shake hands afterwards, right? That's the new thing in WWE, right? Faces versus faces, or just, even if it's a heel versus face, if it's a good wrestling match, the loser now gets up and you shake hands. It was a good contest. I don't even know what we're doing anymore. We're just shaking hands left and right. Anyway, Creed Brothers coming up tonight, Alpha Academy. That's a little preview. I hope to be, there's a chance I could be live before Raw tonight. So, I don't know if that's going to be channel members only, my gold card unit in the chat. But there's a chance I could be live tonight before Raw. So hopefully I'll have a more detailed Raw preview for you. Moving on, a major injury for a major AEW wrestler. And this one is just sad. Because it's like Adam Cole. They just can't catch a break. And the only thing they catch is another broken bone after another broken bone. It's wild, man. They can't catch a break. Adam Cole, we just saw this, and we see it with this individual who just got a broken orbital bone, I believe, is what is being detailed. Bryan Danielson out with a broken orbital bone. Just like Adam Cole, with all the concussions, he comes back. He's really looking forward to finally having a good run in AEW. Jumps off the ramp and blows out a wheel. And Adam Cole is right back on the shelf just as fast as he came back. Bryan Danielson with the tons of concussions that he's dealt with, and whether minor or severe, the leg injuries, the arm injuries, and now Bryan Danielson out with this injury for a good amount of time. Right when Bryan Danielson was talking about winding his career down over the next year especially, and this happens. They just can't catch a break. And I don't know if they're just trying to do too much in that ring at a time where it's too low of a viewership. You know, it reminds you back Attitude Era days. Not just ECW, but just little backyard promotions that would be going all out. The things they were doing, literally putting their lives on the line for about 6 people in attendance in the backyard. You're not on pay-per-view. You're not on television. You got about 6 people on your lawn watching you fall off your roof through 6 flaming tables into a pile of thumbtacks, nails, and imploding light bulbs. You know, it's not to that degree, obviously. You have much more people in the crowd, and you are on TV. But they don't have to be going to this level, man. You're performers, you're pro wrestlers. You should not be... There shouldn't be this many injuries. Now, I know the old term is it's not ballet. That's great. But wow, AEW has a string of huge injuries at all times. A lot of it is just the flukiest of things, like CM Punk jumping into the crowd or Adam Cole just jumping off the ramp. I really believe they have to stop jumping off of anything at this point. Sting jumps off the apron into a table, misjudges that completely, winds up 2 full feet away from his target and almost just takes himself out. Knocked himself out, but almost took himself out. The AEW talent should just stop jumping off of anything right now. Everybody take a deep breath. RELAX. There's ways to put on a good performance and not hurt each other or yourself. Bryan Danielson out again. When I heard that, I just could not believe it. I literally thought it has to be storyline. It has to be a work. Doesn't look as such. Big AEW pro wrestler out with a pretty significant injury. We'll see, man. We'll get more info on it. We'll see the timetable on his return. But now the question is being brought up in the community, right? At what point does Bryan Danielson have nothing left to prove? The injuries are stacking up so massively that he's going to be feeling all these, not just way down the line, but Within just a few years' time, he's going to be feeling all those leg and arm injuries, the neck injuries, the dome piece injuries, now the face injuries. He's going to be feeling those. Ask any of these pro wrestlers, man. Hulk Hogan only did a leg drop. That was the biggest thing this dude ever did. That might have any effect on his ass, you would think, right? No, it affected his back to the point where he can barely walk and had about 116 surgeries on it. Randy Orton will tell you what the RKO did to that dude. Or all the countless pro wrestlers that have trouble just walking. You start to really feel those injuries deep into your 40s, especially in your 50s. In the 60s, forget about it. So it's just a discussion for everybody to go, stop, this is just it's a freak accident. No question. That's not the point. If you knew how many injuries this dude had and how severe most were and are, you'd start to ask, man, you got the family now. You got the beautiful wife, the beautiful kids. You got the picket fence, the house. You got it all. We understand you came back because this is your passion. That's awesome. But whoa, it's a deep hole that's being dug right now. You got to start asking, is this worth it, man? In AEW of all places where it's not moving the needle. And that's tough to say, but Bryan Danielson is not. AEW is in a tough spot right now, viewership-wise. And to see Bryan Danielson just getting injured left and right, man, it's like, damn. Because this is just going to push the end of his career up even faster, even sooner. And you're just thinking, is this the best way to utilize? I think that was like a tag team match this dude was in. It's a lot of discussion on it, man. But Bryan Danielson, another injury, it looks like. Anyway, moving on. Vince McMahon recently in Saudi Arabia, big, what was it, UFC or boxing? I think it was Tyson Fury, wasn't it? Oh, man, I hope they didn't just sign Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury has been talking about wanting to come back to WWE. And then he admits in an interview a few days later that it was just so tough, so he couldn't do it. It was really hard, the bumps and everything. He didn't want to do it. So who needs this dude back? His name value is bare minimum at best, and I'm being generous. He was already in WWE. When I say didn't move the needle, I think the needle went backwards. So that's not being too harsh. That's not player hating at all. WWE does not need, nor should they have, a Tyson Fury. Especially if it's just too hard for him anyway. It's not going to get easier, kid. So they're at this fight. Undertaker is there. Mark Calloway with Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon has a walking cane, of course, coming back off of back surgery. Most people would still be up in bed right now. Vince McMahon is traveling all the way to Saudi and showing up to events. And for Vince to have that cane, the pain, the agony, and how much that must hurt for Vince to even hold that cane. But he's still walking around, man. That's one tough SOB. He was asked about coming back to that particular hall in Saudi Arabia. I forgot the name of it, but that little hall, they call it, in the stadiums in Saudi Arabia, and just WWE, and now UFC is going to be going over there more traditionally. And Vince McMahon said, and I quote, "This is our new home now." That was a quote. This is our new home now. If you were thinking like this deal with Saudi Arabia, this is part of Saudi Arabia's whole master plan to pretty much get all of these big sports, big names, big brands under their umbrella. They took basically golf. What is that? PGA? I keep wanting to think that's bowling, but I think I'm pretty sure that's the golf, right? They took golf, basically, or have a massive rival to the PGA now. They got pro wrestling. They're developing their own type of UFC, so why not get UFC as well? They're doing all of these massive deals with basketball. There is a massive plan in place with Saudi Arabia to be the destination for sports and entertainment. And Vince McMahon is over there not just to watch a fight. No, Vince McMahon's over there to cut more deals. We just heard recently that Vince McMahon was behind a massive UFC in Saudi Arabia deal. Not just what you heard about. There's much more details to come. We'll have that in a future podcast. But Vince McMahon is getting those deals together. So there's a lot of reasons why Vince is over there. And he says this is the new home for WWE. Saudi Arabia. Wow. No longer the United States, no longer New York City. Of course, they'll be there more than Saudi Arabia, but that's a bold statement. That tells you everything you need to know. This is about the money. It's always been about the money. We already know that. But to just give you a glimpse, because they know they liquidated. They know that. So now they have to make sure that Saudi Arabia is their bank account, basically. They are there every time they need to turn around and get money from mommy and daddy. That's going to be Saudi Arabia. And as long as they have them to lean on, WWE can record and announce record revenue. Because without Saudi, good luck. Fox already showed you they're not going to pay the $1 billion plus that Nick Khan and Vince were looking for. Fox said, check you, peace. USA cut him a fat check for SmackDown. It was under the value that Nick Khan was looking for, because even USA was not going to pay that. And Monday Night Raw, we'll see. They'll probably get a big check for Monday Night Raw, but most likely you're going to hear that it was way under the asking price of Nick Khan, and I'm talking $50 to $100 million bare minimum. Those aren't pennies, guys. That puts fear into the stock market, your shareholders. Why did you not get what we were looking for? We were hoping for what we were looking for and even more. The value in what we all have stock in. Why don't they see the same thing? And that puts panic in it. That's why the stock went from 100 of what they were trading at, $100, to, where were they? 70, 74? It went as low as. That's why that happens. So, massive things happening with WWE in Saudi Arabia. Vince McMahon has declared that it is the new home for WWE. Moving on. Lance Anoa'i to WWE. Possible. Lance Anoa'i just, I believe he asked for his release and was granted it by MLW, Major League Wrestling. And Lance Anoa'i, of course, the cousin of The Rock. Roman Reigns. The Usos. I believe all, right? Definitely Roman Reigns' cousin, because they did an interview together, which would have to be the Usos. I believe that means The Rock as well, because they're cousins. Tried deciphering that family history and tree. I'm telling you, you ever see the Anoa'i tree? It's wild. Like the wild Samoans, man. But on another level. But I believe he's the cousin of all of them. But Lance Anoa'i asked for his release. It's been granted. At a time where they could desperately need more family in the Bloodline story. The story has gone stale. I don't even know what the story is anymore. I really don't. They're going to try to take out LA Knight, and I don't. Jay's over on Raw, and I guess Jimmy's been attacking Jay, and then Jay will show up to attack Jay. I guess they're continuing that. I don't know what the story is with the Bloodline. It's fallen to the wayside. It's not even stale anymore. It's just there is no story anymore, right? The Bloodline story is done. Roman barely shows up to work. So there is no Bloodline storyline. The Bloodline, you don't even have all the members anymore. Again, Jay and Jimmy have split, so Jay's over on Raw. Roman doesn't show up to work. So basically the Bloodline is Paul Heyman, Jimmy Uso, Solo Sikoa. It's like Paul Heyman is managing a B-team tag team. No offense to Solo and Jimmy, but that's all they are. They just are there to be the heels that lose all the time to the top faces, right? So it's a B-team tag team. And Paul Heyman's like the manager. It's not even like a faction anymore. So I say you bolster this up. I say if you were to bring back Nia Jax, bring her back to be in the Bloodline then, man. Have something that she can just be there and just look badass, but not necessarily wrestle all that. Let her be the solo, but in female form, right? Or Trinity Fatu, even though not direct, blood relative, you know, married into the Uso bloodline. So yeah, you could easily say that Trinity Fatu would be a part of the Bloodline. I mean, she's married to Jimmy. It makes complete sense that she would be in the blood. So I would have brought back Trinity. No, she's in Impact, and she's rocking TNA right now, by the way. From the day she stepped foot in there. But I would have brought her back right into the Bloodline. Lance Anoa'i is a good fit. There's several good fits that you could have in the Bloodline and really pump up the story to mean something, to matter again. Lance Anoa'i. Not saying he's the best wrestler or when you look at Lance Anoa'i, you might not scream, wow, superstar. Kind of reminds me of a Bo Dallas, actually. But they can still add a lot of value. So, I don't know if you guys know a lot about Lance Anoa'i or you know a little bit about him. I don't know how you feel about him showing up to WWE to be inserted with the Bloodline somehow. I can't wait till Simone Johnson somehow starts interacting with all of the Bloodline members either. That should be a lot of fun. She's still young in the game. She has so much that she still needs to improve on. But it's those situations, they'll definitely add a punch to this Bloodline saga because it has gotten beyond stale. It's pretty much non-existent. Lance Anoa'i has been released. Something to look out for, guys. A lot of people might not even know, but right, he'll debut, and a lot of people will be like, what in the world? But we said that about the Usos, too, many moons ago when they first debuted. And then you found out they ain't here to play. They have a big family history, and they're going to live up to that and beyond. And the Usos more than did that. So we'll see what Lance does if he shows up to WWE. Now, guys, I'm going to close out with the ratings. No other way to say it. It was a rough week in the ratings last week. If BC was going to take a week where I had to attend to a lot of business and do some other things on the side as well, that was the week to do it. Monday Night Raw was just horrendous. I was able to catch it, though. Unfortunately, I did spend the majority of the 3 hours actually catching that show, and I reviewed it for you guys the next morning. But Dynamite I wasn't able to catch, and it doesn't look like I missed much. I mean, a big storyline was Ric Flair was Tony Khan's present to Sting. He had a gift for Sting. You know, Sting announced his retirement. What is it, March or Evolution, I believe. So Tony Khan had a present. It was Ric Flair. So that garnered some headlines. Other than that, Dynamite, more than forgettable. That's what fans were telling me. I didn't catch the show. And then you look at the numbers, and the numbers usually reflect the show. Doesn't matter, guys, what sporting event, doesn't matter the holiday, it doesn't matter. It'll affect the numbers, but it's up to the show to produce the best possible product to get the best possible number, guys. That's the whole thing here. It's up to the show to deliver. Otherwise, they're not even going to want to tune in to WWE or AEW during commercial breaks. And that's what these numbers showed last week. Monday Night Raw scored a 1.48 in the rating. Last week, they scored a 1.49. So somehow they went down another 10,000, just over 10,000 viewers. Not a big drastic drop-off, but for the second week in a row, you're in the 1.4s, which means for half a month, they're not even in the 1.5s anymore, which is drastically bad against any Monday Night Football game. But you look just a few years ago, they were still fucking around with 2 million plus against Monday Night Football. Oh, how far they have fallen in just a couple of years. And I told you guys, this was the trajectory unless they start changing. And they didn't. They're so smug. They're so egotistical. They're so full of themselves. They thought, we know best. You just sit down and enjoy our product. And what happened was BC was right yet again. Week after week, month after month. Sometimes you get a little bit up, right? You get a little bit of a jolt. You do a theme show. You have a big return, or it's around a big pay-per-view. But other than that, I told you guys, year to year, they're losing about 250 to 300,000 viewers. Or if you look year to year, they're now in the 1.4s consistently. 2 straight weeks at 1.4. And there's people that have their little agendas, right? Because now Paul Levesque McMahon is now at the helm of creative. And they're like, that's a really impressive rating. That is a great rating up against Monday Night Football's San Francisco 49ers and Vikings. Or wherever it was. I think it was, wasn't it Vikings? And either way, it was a Monday Night Football game that is not top tier status. Stop. And then they said, well, Game 7, Astros and the Rangers. Have you seen the numbers for Major League Baseball? The 14% drop within. It doesn't matter what the sporting event is or if you pile 5 or 6 of them on top of one another. It's your job to be the destination television for the night. That's why the Attitude Era whooped football's ass back in the day. There were some big matchups, but WWE and Nitro was simply unmissable. You couldn't miss it. It was must-see TV, we called it. So you can blame sporting events all you want. You can look at a 1.4 rating and go, that's actually impressive. Not on this channel. That's actually horrible. And that's 2 weeks in a row. And you think it gets easier? You think that there's not going to be better games down the line? Do you think there's not going to be presidential speeches and debates as the election comes near? Do you think there's not going to be holidays and reserved holidays on Mondays? It's going to happen. Half of the year, bare minimum, you can have an excuse as to why WWE is plummeting in the ratings. You can have those excuses. But on this channel, we're going to call the problem and the fault and put it right in the lap of where it should lie, which is in WWE's lap. It is their show that is not good. If this was just a good show and they pulled a 1.4, then we can go, damn, nobody gave it a chance. Baseball, football, badminton, the Monopoly championships. Everybody went outside at 9 o'clock and played a game of Twister with their neighbors. Who knows? Maybe they just twiddled their thumbs and played in traffic. I don't know why they didn't watch Raw as a good show. No. We all know that Monday Night Raw was not a good show Monday. If you watch the show, you know it was just not good. And the number will reflect that. 1.4 semod for the second week in a row. Doesn't matter if it's a Vincent Kennedy or a Paul Levesque McMahon. When a McMahon is running Monday Night Raw, it's bad. And it drastically needs a change tonight. It needed to change last week, last month, a year ago, 10 years ago. So we'll see what tonight produces, but a 1.48. It doesn't matter what sporting event. It doesn't matter how many sporting events. If you pulled a 1.4 a week before your next big pay-per-view, that's horrible. AEW on the flip side, 2 nights later, Wednesday night, they scored 774,000 viewers. That is AEW Dynamite's lowest rating all year long. Aside from 2 weeks ago, out of their normal time slot at night, which was 600-some-odd-thousand viewers. That was up against NXT's Tuesday Night Wrestling. So, not including that, normal night in time slot, lowest rating of the year, 774,000 viewers. Now that is down from last week's 901,000 viewers. And I told you guys last week, I said that was pretty big for them. To come off of 600,000 2 weeks ago on Tuesday night. To be back on Wednesday night and to score over 900,000. Is it anywhere near where they used to be? 950 to 1 million consistently? No. But because their new normal is now 850, their own fan base has walked away from their product. Their own diehard, tried and true AEW fans said no more. It's no longer fun for me. They walked away. 950 turned into 850. So to pull 900,000 last week was, I say take it. Run, don't look back like you just robbed the bank if you're Tony Khan. And just hope that you can sustain that. Stay consistent around 9, and maybe you can work your way back to 950. That's all you can ask for right now, because they're in a world of shit, viewership-wise. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep 900,000, and unfortunately, they couldn't even keep 800,000. Guys, they fell 127,000 viewers this week. I don't know why. Again, I didn't catch the show. Was it that bad? I don't know if any of you guys caught the entire show. Was Dynamite that bad? Because there's no baseball, there's no football, there's no entity in the world, there's no presidential speech or debate or holiday that can make a pro wrestling show lose 127,000 views. They weren't even checking in during commercials. They did not care what was happening. I'll catch the highlights. I'll DVR it. I don't need to watch this live. That's not must-see TV, and that's the problem. That's why ratings matter. Shows you the level of care and interest into the product. That's why I say it's not just about DVRing or highlights. BC, it's a different time in 2023. No. It tells you exactly what show is hot enough that you need to watch live on your big screen. AEW 774 for a Dynamite on its normal time slot in its normal night. 774. That rocked AEW. From what we're hearing is Tony Khan did not take that good at all. From what I know, there was no social tweets or X's sent out about WWE or Tony Khan raging. But Tony Khan really didn't take that well. He's having a rough go of it, man. Viewership is really hard to come by for All Elite Wrestling. And I think now is the time, just like I say about Monday Night Raw and just like I say about my Green Bay Packers, if everything is not working, change everything. Come call the audible and flip everything upside down if it's not working. And try the opposite of what you're doing. Because AEW can't find itself. It's trying to serve too many hats right now, right? It's trying on too many hats. It's trying to serve the diehards that want to see sequences and chant, "This is awesome," because they just saw a Canadian destroyer from the top rope through the table. I don't know. The 640, 750, 830 plancha splash, Hurricanrana. I don't know. But they want to see, right? The 6-star. They want to see how much stars Meltzer's going to give it, right? They're trying to service those fans. Then they're trying to service the WWE style, right? Throw in some entertainment here. Have a 2-minute match. Maybe it leads to a little bit of a heel turn here. Something, right? Something that you can identify with. That's not just a banger and a clanger. They're trying to service too many groups of fans all at once. And when you try to do many things correctly, most of the time you're going to do all those things wrongly. So instead of doing everything all at once, try doing a few things. Get them down packed. Do them correctly. Then move on to the other steps in the process. But trying to do everything at once is never going to work. It's like trying to have a Dynamite, a Rampage, a Collision, and an ROH all within 5 years of your company. Tony Khan has way too much going on right now for a company that doesn't justify it. This company is nowhere near having 3 primetime shows and a whole second company like ROH. This company is doing so much with so little viewership. Build your audience first. Put Dynamite at 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 bare minimum, then talk about a Rampage. And then when that gets to about a mil 1, mil 2, then come up with a Collision, maybe. 3 shows is way too much, but even WWE's third show is an NXT. They look at that as the little brother. AEW, you don't know where to turn, what's next. There's different people on different shows. There's 8,000 storylines going on, but no storyline going on. What I mean by that is there's 8,000 things you could say, hey, that's a story, but none of them you care about. None of them are being latched onto. AEW has to flip everything upside down because 774, and this is their normal night and time slot. Every time there's a big game on, every time there's a presidential debate or a holiday, you're just going to say, well, that's why. Well, that's half the year then, man. No. You have to step up. You have to start competing. It's not about beating baseball or football or the presidential debate or beating a holiday, which is impossible because you can't beat the holiday. It's not about beating it. It's about competing to the point where you're putting out your best possible product so you're not getting a 774 viewership. Or a 1-4 for a show that's been around for decades like Raw. And then there's people that sit back and go, not bad, actually. No, actually, it's horrible. If you actually know how to follow numbers and you follow trends and trajectories, a 1-4 is horrendous. And that's where we're going to end the podcast, unfortunately, on a down note for WWE and AEW, but it was a down week. Viewership was off massively, and I can't say it's off by much because AEW on a good week is pulling about 850 to 9, and Monday Night Raw on a good week is pulling 1.5 to 1.7. With or without Monday Night Football. For everybody that claims it's sports and football, I want you to look at what Raw was pulling in on the average before football. It was around the same. They hit 1.5s without football. They were hitting 1.6, 1.7, sometimes 1.8 without football. Doesn't matter. They're just not producing good television. Anyway, guys, I could be live later this evening. Could be. There's a possibility, so make sure you're subscribed and notified. Obviously, I shouldn't have to tell you that. But be on the lookout, man. Keep a keen eye on the channel, and possibly we'll be live later for a Raw preview and any other developing stories. We'll have a coffee, and we'll shoot the shit a little bit. But until then, tomorrow, obviously, the Raw review, that's coming at you, so it's going to be a big week on the channel as we storm into November and get closer and closer to Survivor Series, Crown Jewel, what is it, Full Gear, I believe, over in All Elite, right? There's a lot coming up in November, so we're going to set the tone right, and hopefully we can do that tonight. Hopefully we've already started that with this podcast. That's it, guys. Until next time, and it will be that next time. Top guys, we're out. BC saying check you. Peace.